Hi everyone, thanks very much Kate. Okay folks, this adventure is about a group of friends going across to Sweden and taking on what is rapidly becoming known as a sort of cult experience, a cult sort of ultra race experience. It's an amazing event hosted in some islands, an archipelago of islands off the coast of Stockholm in Sweden. There's some guys, some mates dreamt up in a pub one night over there, and it's kind of the end result of a bet and a few too many beers that this thing came about. But like I say, it's rapidly become a really well-known and sort of really kind of crazy, quirky event. It's essentially an ultra-marathon, rudely interrupted by 20 swims. And it's a 40-mile ultra with 6 miles of swimming, broken up into a sort of bomb burst of islands, which I'll show you in a moment. It's obviously a tough event because of the distance involved, but what makes it really quite challenging is the time limits they put upon it, which are frankly pretty unfair. They're not that achievable by mere mortals, and it takes most people at least 2 attempts to crack it, because there's so much to think about. There's the kit, the training, the preparation, the teamwork, and all that kind of thing to consider. So it's not unusual for the first few attempts to not quite work out the way they should. We were no different. We didn't make it, I'll tell you that now, so it saves any sort of heartache at the end. Right, okay, beginning of the story. 4 mates who do things quite regularly together. We're all ex-rugby players, we all kind of went to school together as well, we're all good friends, and between us we've done a whole bunch of stuff, the usual kind of things I suppose. There's the Marathon des Sables in there, Devizes to Westminster, there's all kinds of, trans, this, that and the others between us all, and basically we're just a good bunch of mates who love doing fun stuff in tough challenges in beautiful places, kind of how Endurance Life, that's what Endurance Life is all about, and that's what us guys all kind of, aspire to do and get involved with. So this was no different. This is one of our annual trips that we try and plan. We're all, married, 2 kids, jobs and everything else, but we still try and make it happen once a year. And this year we chose the Otilo, which we heard about from a bunch of guys when we were in Norway at the Norseman Extreme Triathlon. Everyone was talking about what they're doing next in the minibus, and the conversation suddenly cropped up and included this Otilo thing, which none of us had heard about, and all the guys in the bus had been considering doing this for some time, and it really kind of really captured our imagination. So Otilo it was. We were about the 4th team to book on, so very keen, and we called ourselves Endurance Life 1, and the other guys were the Devon Speedos, I believe, and yeah, slight irony there, but yeah, it was just a typical boys' trip. We booked the time off with the bosses, etc., and got the whole thing penciled in the diary, booked the flights, and there was no going back. And of course, that's the key thing, isn't it? Making the commitment, getting something in the diary, asking the boss for permission to leave the premises, as it were, and then cracking on with the training and everything else. I think without that date in the diary, nothing really happens, does it? You sort of just drift along, and, keeping relatively fit, perhaps, not really going anywhere, unless you have something to aim for. So that's how we kind of stay in shape, I suppose, by having these things up there that sort of motivate you to get out of bed at the weekend. So the guys here, we've got Mike on the end, who's an architect, Julian in the middle, Barry, and then myself on the left-hand side. And this is the actual start of the event. And I'll just take you through the images now and give you a bit of a tour of the place. So we flew into Sweden, got a train into town, into Stockholm, walked through the town to a train station, and we ended up at this magnificent hotel that we just found on the internet, which happened to be opposite a really cool bar, and that's where we spent our first night. And I must say, these trips are very much geared around having fun, as well as taking on a big challenge. So we always make sure that we get out and have a few beers, etc., mix with the locals. So there we go. Carbo loading, we call it. I think there's a few steaks amongst that lot, but all good fun. That was the hotel after the bar. It was about 1 o'clock, I think. There we go. This is on the way. This is kind of the whole event. There's no going back now. You get a ferry from very close to where the hotel was there, and you head out 2.5 hours into this, out to sea basically, or up the coast to this archipelago of islands, to this kind of famous in Swedish circles holiday destination. It's a really, really beautiful and quite pucker kind of sailor's retreat, this island off the coast of Sweden. And part of the thing that strikes me when you're travelling to these events and things is the cultural experience, obviously, and I always notice this when we're in Scandinavia, that people fly their flags with such pride, and they're everywhere on people's holiday homes, on huts, and on their boats and everything else. It's really nice to see. It's a lovely thing that people like to fly their colours everywhere. I apologise for all the huts in this presentation. I love huts. And these guys do it really well. They have huts. Everyone's got a hut, a summer hut, a winter hut, and a house they live in town probably. And they all retreat to these religiously during the summer holidays, winter holidays and things. The whole family goes along and everything else. I think this is a swimming hut, which is a few hundred yards down the beach from the main hut, which is up in the woods. But they take this kind of thing really seriously. You can see from the design of this beautiful hut here that everything's thought of, and they really are beautiful. Okay, fantastic event. It's small, it's personable, you really are made to feel part of it. We had a great time on the ferry, just drinking coffee and eating flapjacks and things with all the locals who were on board. A lot of local teams from Stockholm. The vast majority of people taking part are Scandinavian, Danish, Finnish, Norwegian. A lot of special forces guys from the Scandinavian forces take part. It's become a bit of a thing amongst them all to compete in this. The two guys in black wearing the Otelo hoodies, they're the two guys who sort of got the idea off the ground. And it was really nice to be met by them on the landing stage. As soon as you got off the boat, it was a handshake and a firm welcome from each of them, which I thought was a lovely touch. And it kind of resonated through the rest of the event, the friendliness and everything else. Fantastic organisation, beautiful setting, as you can see. This is a hotel where registration was held around a swimming pool, and this is where you checked in your kit, or they checked your kit, I should say. So, like in the race today, you have mandatory kit to carry. It's kind of about the same as the sort of stuff you carry today in the marathon, etc. Interestingly, they check it, 24 hours or so before the event starts, and that's the only check. And so I think there's a kind of underlying message there that it's kind of up to you if you take it or not. But we took it pretty seriously and had huge bags rammed full of all the stuff that we needed only to see people on the start line with nothing but wetsuits and fins and things, but that's another story. Okay. The one slight letdown of this otherwise excellent organisation was the notice board, which was thrown together, I would say. And anyway, that's the excuse I will give for us missing the race briefing. We were out walking in the woods looking for the start area, safe in the knowledge that the race briefing was between 5:30 and 7:30. Now it was in fact at 5. We turned up at 5:30 with our notebooks, etc., and everyone was clapping, and the guy was answering questions about the race. And we were standing right at the front because the door was right behind the guy presenting it. Boy, did we look good. So we had to own up, and we had to go and have our own little briefing in the back like naughty school children, and apologise for misreading, the timing of everything. But there you go. He just asked us if we could swim and told us that the cut-offs were pretty strict and, are you good to go? And that was it. Perfect. Okay, this is the second of the hotels we stayed in. And again, beautiful place, fantastic hospitality, and a really cracking part of all this. And they've really thought it through properly. That was a view from our room, this was a running joke. The two guys, as you can imagine, there's a bit of competition in the air. There's me and Barry in one room, the other two guys in another. The first hotel, they had this palatial suite, everything you could ever ask for, a massive view of the marina outside. We had this kind of box room just off the side with no ensuite facilities and no view. And the theme kind of followed through the whole experience, perhaps down to them booking the hotels. Anyway, this was our view, which wasn't too bad, to be honest. I mean, as Swedish views go, it's not amazing, but their view, needless to say, was of the whole bay in a massive room with a jacuzzi and everything else in there. But that was the start area, so it was quite nice to be able to stand in the window and see where we'd be the following morning in somewhat different circumstances in a wetsuit and ready to go. That's it closer up. That was all set up when we arrived. That's a view. I just show you that one because everything in Sweden and Norway, for that matter, seems to be painted in this quite rich red colour. It's like, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's good at resisting UV sunlight or something, but everything's red, and it's a really nice warm colour. Most of the buildings are clad in that kind of colour. This also shows the really smooth sort of granity rocks that were very much part of the island chain we were running through. What it doesn't show is the conditions that we started on the following morning. This is obviously perfect. The following morning was frankly pretty hideous with the windiest conditions they'd ever had in an Otelo race. That's a typical forest trail. That's on the first island where we started, and that leads down to the first swim entry point. Beautiful woodland, these beautiful pines, and there's silver birch and blueberry bushes all through it. It really is gorgeous and very typically Scandinavian. Okay, island style life. I show you this because it's just a very laid back, cool place. All the locals are wearing, flip flops and jeans and chilling out. This is midweek, obviously, and kids in the front of the moped trailer there, just whipping off down the shop to get some supplies. A very nice kind of scene. Again, there's another sort of hut. Another hut. A bigger one. Right, I thought this was really cool, typical of their kind of culture, coffee culture, cafes everywhere. This one we turned up because it was kind of tucked away, looked really homely, and we sat there for about 20 minutes waiting for the person to turn up and ask us if we wanted a coffee. Then one of the locals said, it's a help yourself one. You pay as you go type thing. And literally you walk up to the window there and there's flasks and coffee and tea and everything else. You literally sort yourself out, take a couple of cakes and leave what's due and enjoy it in the sunshine there and off you go. There's no one around. Very cool. Right, kit. The Otelo is a kit fanatic's dream. It's an absolute nightmare trying to get this side of it right, and there's not that much information really on the web that's helpful because everyone's got their own take on it. There are pretty much no rules other than you have to have some sort of neoprene costume on, and you have to take the mandatory kit in theory. But otherwise, you can basically wear what you like and take what you like and use the propulsion system that you like, etc. So it would be better if there was just strict rules and you said, right, fair enough, I'm going to do that, let's get on with it. But no, it's open to artistic license and your imagination, which causes all kinds of problems, as I'm sure you'll agree. This was kind of our choice, so we whittled it down to, I guess, the bare essentials really, or what we thought were the bare essentials. We had these awesome Team Endurancelife rashies underneath a sort of long john wetsuit, which was cut off just above the knees and cut off over the shoulders, so we had the sort of ease of movement. Then we went for the hand paddles, which seemed to be, from all the videos we'd seen, the weapon of choice. Hand paddles, increasing the big surface area of the hand to get more propulsion, because you were carrying all this kit as well. And then the bum bag, it was always a question of a backpack or a bum bag, what's the best way to carry the kit? So we opted for these sort of innovate, bags that a lot of you guys wear during our races that I've noticed. And yeah, it turned out okay. Again, the footwear, a big question, a big conundrum. A lot of people do wear innovate shoes. I went for these sort of blue ones, these sort of CrossFit shoes, which works really well for me. Others wear the more sort of the trail-orientated ones. Mandatory kit, whistle, compass. There was a safety wrap in there somewhere. Then all your own nutrition, etc. as well. You need to sort of pop in the bag too. And you can't see the wetsuit that's underneath all that kit. It doesn't show that very well. And there's also a swim cap and an Otelo bib you have to wear as well as part of the mandatory setup. So that was the kit. As you may have seen from the video earlier on, you can wear all kinds of stuff. People have paddles, blow-up lilos. You didn't see those, but they literally have blow-up lilos stuck under their arm, and fins, so they were finning along, or cut-off bits of sort of surfboards, all kinds of stuff ends up in the water. You got Special Forces guys, sort of the equivalent of Navy SEALs and Armed Marines or whatever, or SBS, with these sort of black dark fins on, perfectly matching black suits, looking very serious and scary. And yeah, so all different types of tactics, all different types of kit. And yeah, really pretty interesting, but mind-bogglingly difficult to sort out when you're trying to get ready. Oh dear. That's very early in the morning in his defence, and he always gets red eye in any photo, but that's sort of getting ready at 4 a.m. for the start. That's the two teams on the start line. Again, it's really early in the morning, and everyone's gathering. The atmosphere is brilliant, sort of nervous tension as you always get at these things. Oh yes. I suppose you can see the kit there. Sorry about the choice of socks. I was told these compression things work wonders. Never worn them before. But they might work well, but they certainly make you look all right, Charlie, don't they? So, but it seems to be the fashion. Okay, that's just there to show you how cumbersome the packs actually became. I mean, that's just got the mandatory kit in and a couple of litres of water. And our theory was that we'd blow into the tube to inflate the pack when we entered the water, and then suck all the air out and get back to the water when we exited the water. If you remembered, it was a great tactic. But otherwise, it was a pretty big thing to be lugging around on your back, and acted as a bit of a obstacle to the water moving past you. There we go. You can see it in its full glory there. Okay, so now we're about 10 minutes from the start. Everyone's massing behind the start line. The guy in the mic's revving everyone up. There's a helicopter buzzing overhead, so the atmosphere is fantastic by this point, and really, a little bit scary as well. It's a big leap into the unknown, this one. None of us had a clue how we'd get on. We'd had a mixed bag of training efforts. None of us had done much, really, to be honest, which is often the way. We'd all had a stab at it. We hadn't even got together as a team until the week before. So it's just the way it always turns out. That's now 2 minutes before the start, so everyone's now really getting excited. You can see some different kit there now, the paddle, the fins on the back, etc. There's us guys still trying to have a laugh. The Brits of these things always seem to have, more, I've got to say, more fun than anyone else. I don't know why. Maybe it's the beer the night before. But there's just a great atmosphere amongst the British. I mean, there was about 7 British teams there amongst lots of others, and we definitely seem to have more of a laugh. We were taking the mickey out of each other as you do, and all the old jokes were coming out and everything else, and that itself created a bit of a buzz, I think, and added to the atmosphere. So that's really cool. I think we're quite proud of that. There we go. Union Jacks on the back, ready to go. That's literally seconds before the start, and then we were off. Now I don't have any photos of us actually cracking through the course because you've got other things on your mind, but that's one photo I did take to show you again what the course was like on some parts and also how it was marked. Now, across the 20 islands, they use this multicoloured tape in the same way we do sometimes. But there was literally, yards and yards of it every sort of 100 metres. This was a really good, easy to follow trail, but lots of it was actually bashing through unmarked stuff or seldom marked rocks and diving through bushes and everything else. It was really bushwhacky in places and climbing over slippery rocks and all that sort of thing. Your pace just slows to a snail's pace. And this is one of the big challenges as well. Getting in and out of the water, as you saw in the video, was really tricky, really, really tricky. Slippery rocks, there's no landing stage or exit points. You've just got a guy halfway up the cliff with a flag, and you're at liberty to get out wherever you like within the vicinity of that flag and get up to the checkpoint. So the choice is yours. And of course, it relies on teamwork and everything else, and you get used to it in the end, but some of these rocks are really greasy and slippery. And Barry, bless him, isn't blessed with the best balance, I have to be honest. And he had some spectacular tumbles early on in the race, which probably ultimately undid us, but I literally saw him take off twice and land on his back, in pieces, and he was there for a good 3 seconds catching his breath, and then he'd just get up and crack on and jump in the water, and then he fell over and smashed his knee on a rock as well. And this is all pretty early on, so that didn't help, that added to the challenge as well. Okay, that's a good photo of the conditions on one of the crossings. The largest of which is a mile, so about 1,500 metres, and it's pretty daunting. I mean, I'm no swimmer, and there were safety boats out there apparently, but I didn't see many, and I wasn't worried. But there were boats some way off, but they couldn't. There's no way they could have seen us, and you just had to rely on each other to stay on the right line, trying to spot a small flag in the distance. But some of these swims are pretty brutal, and these took ages. I mean, we were in the water for a long time, being pretty average swimmers, but we got through them. There's another little bit. On the first swim, which is one of the longest, we were cruising along, and you suddenly bottom out on these massive, rounded, smooth boulders, which just only stick above the water a couple of inches. It was really surreal. And it was only halfway through the swim as well. We kind of thought we'd landed it and we'd made the swim in no time at all, but in fact it's only halfway through, and you kind of have to half swim, drag yourself over these boulders, and then crack on to the other side. Right. This is where we get to the point where where the wheels fell off, I suppose you could say. There's checkpoints all the way along the course, and they're very tough to make. They really are. You've really got to crack on. There's no time to pause with your kit or stop at the feed stations. You've just got to do everything on the hoof. So you're constantly moving, constantly concentrating on making forward progress. And yeah, we made the 4 o'clock checkpoint. We were the last team allowed through, and basically, I knew we were pretty close to it. We didn't think we'd make it, but I had an inkling we might make it if we really cracked on. So I sprinted ahead as best I could, and Barry was a little bit behind, getting out the water. And all of a sudden, this guy on a sort of moped thing came up the trail saying, "You're the last team if you make it. You're the last team." So we had to really, really gun it. And I got there, I think, about a minute before they were going to close, and Barry was still not in sight. So I was yelling at the top of my voice, "Come on, Arnold, come on, mate." And he suddenly appeared around the corner, and he had to full-on sprint. They were closing the gate, and he literally barged his way through it. And that's how strict these checkpoints were. And pretty brutal, but it's the way it has to be for the race to run, safely. So we literally were on our backs, the last team through. They closed the gate, put a lock on it, and our mates were bringing up the rear about 400 metres behind us, and we could see them in the distance, and we knew what the news was going to be when they got there. So we just carried on. Because we were gutted, because we'd been together the whole way, swapping swapping the lead, as it were, amongst the four of us, and still keeping the jokes and the one-liners going to keep us all motivated. But I couldn't face seeing them, knowing that they'd just missed it, and so we decided to, like I say, crack on with the next swim. So by this time we knew we were really up against it now. We had a 300-metre swim, then the longest run of the whole event, which I think was about 11 or 12 clicks, and we did some simple mental arithmetic and realised that we'd have to bust our 10k PB on a good day to have any chance of getting to the end of that next stage. So we stupidly just bimbled on for about 10 minutes, not being able to accept the fact we weren't going to make it, and by some miracle they might give us another half an hour to get there or something, but it wasn't going to happen. Anyway, Barry was in agony, his knee was in bits, it was ballooned right up, you can probably see it there, his left-hand knee, and he was pretty down in the dumps, and his nickname's H, his nickname's Handle, we call him H, and we just found this sign in the woods, and it's little things like that that just perk you up, isn't it? There we go. This is the evacuation trailer. Behind the tractor, there's Handle, H, looking somewhat gutted to have been lifted from the race. Never a pleasant thing, but we weren't that bothered. I mean, we'd really gone for it. We'd really tried hard. The combination of the training, getting the kit right and everything else, and I think we did pretty well, considering. We were pretty chuffed with our efforts. And there were a lot of people with us. There was a 40% attrition rate this race. A lot of newbie teams didn't make it, and the weather, like I say, was really tough. So we were pretty chuffed with our performance. This is the finish. There's Handle in the bottom left corner, and we got bussed and boated into this place. Took about an hour and a half, 2 hours to get there by that method. And we saw a lot of the guys, still running and still in the water on the way round in the boat. And it was a big evacuation boat. There were loads of people on it. It's quite good fun, actually. And there's the podium. The guys who won, the two blokes in the middle there, one in the leather jacket, very cool guys. Eco Maniacs was the team name. They did it in 9 hours and 7 minutes, which is just incomprehensible. It really is incredible. It's phenomenal. The last team through who made it past the checkpoints did it in 14 hours 45. So that gives you some idea as to the pace that those guys were moving at. Really phenomenal. We bailed at the 4 o'clock checkpoint. We've been on the hoof for about 11 hours, I guess, and we would have made it had the time limits been a little less strict. But it's easy to say that, isn't it? But I'm pretty convinced we would have made it. It would have been a case of just slogging it out, and we're all pretty good at that. Anyway, that's how that race kind of panned out for us. Now, I think it's really important to mention the fact that we went out as friends, and we came back as friends, and we had a really good time. And in the bar afterwards, we all kind of summed up our experiences, and we were all to a man, really chuffed with how we got on, and how we'd all got on as teams, and everything else. And that really, I suppose, is what comes out of all this, is that it's not necessarily down to the performance on the day, it's about the journey in between the start and the finish, and doing as well as you can, and making sure that you enjoy the journey, and not just concentrating too much on the end point, because sometimes it's not really that important, and you learn more from the stuff in between anyway. There we go, the same fantastic goodbye from the crew as well. So back on the ferry, in the same kind of manner. A lot of people are now friends, they're all talking about their experiences and commiserating those who didn't quite make it, and all that sort of stuff. So that was really good fun. Not quite a hut, but not. Again, the islands in Sweden are fantastic. Just outside Stockholm, you've got this incredible playground, and they are so lucky. I hope they realise it. But they've got, masses of sea channels and islands and everything. It's brilliant for sea kayaking, sailing. Everyone's got a hut, like I say, and they really do have a tremendous standard of living. It's a great place to check out if you haven't been there before. And there's the Otilo flag fluttering in the wind after the fanfare had died down. And there we are. That's how we celebrated or commiserated ourselves at the end of the challenge, by having a few beers, as we always tend to do. We actually stayed an extra night to make sure that we got to experience Stockholm properly after the challenge. I think we told the girls at home something different, but there were no flights on that day. But nonetheless, we made the most of our time in Stockholm and had a really good crack, and it really did sort of close the deal and made the whole trip worthwhile for us all. Okay, well that's kind of it really, guys. I think I've got 1 minute left. We're going to take some questions afterwards apparently, so if anyone has any ambitions of having a crack at this one, I'd be only too pleased to answer any questions or anything. Otherwise, send us an email or anything like that. Otherwise, thanks very much for listening. Cheers.